Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and this is a comic book review, and this is one I'm very excited for. And this is another Tron video. As you can see, I've been releasing a lot of Tron videos recently. Mostly I'm just excited for finally having a functioning identity disc, and also just because I'm very excited for Tron Ares to come out next year. And also just because I love the Tron series, so might as well release all these videos together. So, this is my review on Tron Betrayal, which is honestly a comic I didn't even know existed until last year. And I am so excited to talk about this. So, keep in mind, this will have spoilers for Tron Betrayal. Let's get into the review. And also, real quick, before I forget, this is just basically going to be kind of like a podcast. So, it's just going to be the thumbnail picture and my audio. So you guys can just listen to it as you guys do what you do on your days. All right, let's go straight into the review because I still have a lot to talk about. So I love the Tron series a lot, especially the second movie, Tron Legacy. Sadly, I never knew until, like I said, last year in mid 2023, that there was a few comics for the Tron series. Not just this one, there's another one, but we'll talk about that later. Except I haven't read it as of this recording, which I'm recording this in July 2024. So when I found out that there was a comic set between Tron 1 and Tron Legacy, which is this one, this comic, Tron Betrayal, I was so excited, especially since this comic is supposed to be canon. However, when I heard the title and the overall synopsis of the comic, I thought it was going to be cool, but really nothing new. I thought it would just be showing us what we already know about Kevin and Clue and how Clue betrayed Kevin. However, what we actually got is not really about that. Yes, at the end of the story, that's shown in a way, and it's mostly just in the epilogue. But everything else was a surprise to see, and it really captivated me so much. So, the short version of what I have to say about this comic in general is that this comic is amazing. This is a perfect story that fully connects Tron 1 to Tron Legacy, and it has things in it that I really wish Tron Legacy had. The fact that we get to see this story, a story I thought we wouldn't really get to see at all, and would just have to try to take guesses as to what happened because, I didn't know that this comic existed, and I was just going based off of the information in Tron Legacy. So the fact that we don't need to do that, it's already amazing. The fact that this story is actually told is just amazing. I honestly thought we wouldn't be able to see this story in the past. And not only that, but this story was also really emotional. And I do have a few complaints, mostly with the epilogue. But other than that, this story was just as good as Tron Legacy was, and just as good as Tron Evolution. And it's just amazing. I loved this story. But what was it about the story and the comic that was so good? Well, first, I thought that the art and the coloring was fantastic and it was done really, really well. I also love that this story takes us to more parts of the Tron universe that both of the two movies didn't. And it's kind of similar to the show Tron Uprising and the game Tron Evolution in a way, in how it shows us more of what the programs do and how they live in their cities. And I wish that Tron Ares will do that as well. But they're kind of bringing the programs to the real world in Tron Ares, so I don't think we'll really get to see this aspect that I'm talking about in Tron Ares very much. I just also hope that Tron Ares does resolve the ending of Tron Legacy and what that set up. But from conversations interviews that the people working the movie have been giving, it does seem like we will be getting things addressed. So that's good. Anyway, back to the comic. I also love that there's a lot of lore here and a lot of world building too. And in a way that complements both Tron 1 and Tron 2 in so many ways. And it builds up on them too, while also showing new things as well. But the biggest thing about this story that I love is the story itself, and just how many questions it answers that I had for over 10 years when Tron Legacy released. Again, as I was just saying earlier, there's things that I thought needed to be addressed in Tron Legacy that wasn't. It's hinted at and explained, and you get enough, sure, but it needed to have a deeper look into it. And this is also the same thing I said in my review for Tron Evolution, which I recorded before this, but I'm releasing after this video. So definitely check out my thoughts on Tron Evolution. But this comic and Tron Evolution both take what Tron Legacy set up and talked about, but expands on it and complements it so well, and it answers things that I had questions on the entire time of Tron Legacy's existence, basically. So one of those things that this comic does so well is that we get to see so much of Kevin's personal life and how he was after the first Tron movie ended. And we get to see how Encom became as it was or as it is now, and how it affected Kevin and his family. And we even get to see Kevin in a more well-written way, way similar to how he was in the second movie compared to the first movie. And this comic really added so much depth to him. He already had so much more depth in Tron Legacy, but this one really adds more depth to him that was needed for the first Tron movie. So I really like that they did that. I also love that the first half of this comic is mostly focused on him in the real world with sections of him in the digital world, while the second part is the opposite. It gives off the sensation of being balanced and living in two worlds as well. And if you watch Tron Legacy, finding balance is a huge central theme to it. So it's really interesting to see that being built up and reflected in this comic, because it really develops Kevin's character to see how he is in Tron Legacy. But one of the biggest things that this comic does so well with the story is also showing us who Kevin married, how he is, and how he and his wife are, and how they were together, and also how understanding she is, and how her family are so understanding as well to Kevin. This is something that I always wished Tron Legacy expanded on so much more, and I'm so glad we get to see this, and what actually happened to her, and how she died. Whereas in the movie, they never really gave an explanation for how she died or any big moments about her at all. Her relationship with Kevin was so good, and you really get to see how hard he was trying to balance both worlds. It was also so nice to see the aftermath of her death and how it affected Kevin so much in raising Sam and handling his job as well. But it also shows how good Kevin was trying to be, and even leaving Encom to try to focus on Sam because he loves Sam and wants to have his focus be on his family, and finding that balance. I thought it was a beautiful example of a single parent doing what they can to try to take care of their child, and how hard it can be, even if they are a rich person such as Kevin. And, by that point, he would be rich because he's, the head of Encom. I also love that this showed a single dad trying to take care of his kid. And this is not something we see very often. You can really tell that he did try so hard and was getting better at it until he was forced to stay in the grid. So I felt so bad for Sam and Kevin because he was making so much progress and really finding that balance that he had been looking to get for so long. He was getting it, and then he had to stay stuck in the grid. And I just felt so bad. The other thing that this story does so well is also showing how different Clue and Kevin are to one another, and how Tron was during this time as well. Now, I think it's also important to give them this background, as it shows how they got to where they were in Tron Legacy in a natural way. But one thing that I never really understood in Tron Legacy that I wish they did expand more on were the ISOs. And this comic does that so well on expanding on the ISOs. We get to see how they came to be, and how the seal simulation is a big important factor into that. We get to see how quickly they evolved and how they were in general. We get to see their relationships with the programs and how that was as well. There was so much done right in how they handled the ISOs that honestly makes it even more tragic with what happened with them, since we actually get to see them and their culture and all of that. This is one of four things I wish that Tron Legacy did. They could have shown us flashbacks of the ISOs being alive and their culture, at least shown us how Korra uh, did some of her own cultural things, but they didn't. The other three complaints that I had with Tron Legacy is, as I said, the whole thing with Kevin and his wife and not showing us that, not really showing us so much about the city, just a few parts. And honestly, the last thing would really be that they don't really show us what happens to Sam and Korra after they leave the grid with the information that they had about Kevin. But thankfully, that seems like it's going to be addressed with Tron Ares. I would also add a little bit in how Clue came to hate the ISOs because that wasn't really explained enough in the movie. So I guess you could say that there's five complaints I have with the movie. But most of these complaints, again, is addressed in Tron Betrayal or Tron Evolution. So really at this point, I can't even really be mad at Tron Legacy anymore because the multimedia aspect that they went with for Tron Legacy's release was really well done. And it really seems like they were writing the script of the book, the comic, the script of the game, and the script of the movie in a way to make each other really complement each other and really at the same time not need each other. There's enough in there for each of these mediums to get the story across, and you don't need the other ones, but still leaving you with the feeling of I really wish they really would have expanded on this, and then seeing the expansion on it, and the expansion, building up on that, but also standing on its own as its own thing. So I can't be mad at Tron Legacy anymore, but for those points, but I'm just glad, that we have all of this now. But at that point, yeah, those would have been my complaints for Tron Legacy. Overall, though, this story in Tron Betrayal basically adds just about all of those things that I love. But basically, overall, though, the story in Tron Betrayal really fixes so much of these complaints, and I love it. Will I say that the story, though, is better than Tron Legacy's? Or that Tron Betrayal in general is better than Tron Legacy? No, because that movie is just amazing. But what I will say is, do I think it's worse than Tron 1? No, because this story was so much better than Tron 1. I think my biggest complaint really with Tron Betrayal was just the epilogue, because it doesn't really match how Clue took over the grid as it is shown and explained in both Tron Legacy and Tron Evolution. However, I honestly think that this story is, in general, just as good as Tron Legacy. It might not be better than Tron Legacy, but it really is just as good as Tron Legacy. And it definitely should have been made into a movie after Tron Legacy to show us all of this, but I'm still glad we got this comic. But again, this is over 10 years later. This is 2024. The movie released in 2010. I didn't know about this comic until last year. So I don't know how many people in the Tron fandom even knew about this comic. Or anyone that just watched Tron Legacy and really enjoyed it, I don't know if they knew about the comic. So, of course, at the same time, I was really little, so I wouldn't have been looking up things regarding a sequel or anything like. No, not true. I did look up sequel stuff, but I wasn't looking up comic related things for Tron Legacy. So at the same time, it is okay that they didn't make a movie out of it. I do know that there's a few other canon Tron universe things. I do know about Tron 2.0, which is a game and a comic, which is the other comic that I mentioned. And it's kind of set after Tron 1, but before Tron Betrayal. A lot of people say Tron 2.0, that all of the things regarding Tron 2.0 is canon, or that it was canon and then it wasn't when the development for Legacy came. And so yeah, some people say that it was canon and it no longer is, or that it is still canon, or that it was never canon. I haven't played or read anything regarding Tron 2.0, so I'm not sure yet. But I am excited to read those and play those games as well. Also, a new Tron game was recently released last year, which is a canon game, and it is called Tron Identity, which I also did review, and I'm releasing the video for that pretty soon. And I really enjoyed that game. And then another canon thing is the Tron Uprising show, which I used to see a few episodes when it released, but I stopped watching it for some reason. But recently I watched all of that, and it is a fantastic show, and I will be doing my review on that as well. Anyway, the movies Tron Legacy and Avatar and the game Xenoblade Chronicles all came out at around the same time, and all three of these had captivated me so much that I still remember seeing both movies in theaters for the first time, and how sometime after Tron Legacy released, for maybe a little over a year or so, I kept hearing about Xenoblade Chronicles and these two other big JRPGs, The Last Story and Pandora's Tower, and how Xenoblade and The Last Story also really captivated me, especially Xenoblade. So I remember my experience hearing about Xenoblade for so long, and it being released and pre-ordering it alongside The Last Story, which I also loved. I didn't get Pandora's Tower until 2019, but yeah, like I thought when I first saw Pandora's Tower, I wasn't really gonna like it, and I really didn't like it even many years later. So that's why I didn't pre-order to begin with. Anyway, I'm talking about all of this, and it seems very disjointed, but I'm talking about all of this in regards to Tron and Tron Betrayal because these three properties, Xenoblade, Avatar, and Tron, for me, they are magical. It's also magical that for me, all three got new things at the same time in 2022 or 2023, which honestly, I just noticed. And I just noticed, which this is not in my script, but I just noticed that not only do all three of these have to do with very philosophical and grand things and spiritual things as well, but Xenoblade has this massive alien world and alien related story, like a very strange story, very similar to Avatar. So the nature and the story is very similar to Avatar, but at the same time, there's a whole computer-based element and philosophy and religion associated with it, which is also very similar to Tron, including people being put into some programs. So yeah, I just realized this now. Xenoblade is basically a mixture of Avatar and Tron together. Anyway, going back to my script, going back to the movies for Tron and just Tron Betrayal in general. Tron Betrayal didn't come out in 2022 or 2023. Only Tron Identity came out in 2023. Tron Betrayal came out in 2010. But I only just discovered it now last year in 2023. So I'm explaining all of these things about Avatar and Tron and Xenoblade because it makes me think of when Tron Legacy came out, the year after Avatar came out, due to also some canon Avatar graphic novels set between the first and second movie being released right now. So I got to read these new Avatar stories along with this new Tron story, which is why I brought up Avatar in the first place. And then there's also a Xenoblade 3 DLC that was released last year set between the second and third game, which is also why I bring that up. So in 2023, it was like all three of these things were being released at the same time again as they were originally when I first discovered all three of these properties. So it was very, very special for me to see a new Tron story that I didn't know about, even though it was an old one. So for me, that it's like that book came out in 2023 for Tron Betrayal. And then we got all of these new graphic novels for Avatar, plus a new Avatar movie, plus a new story element for Xenoblade, all at the same time within a few months to a year apart from each other. So that's what I mean. It feels like it was when all of these released, and it's just so special to me. So it was really magical to see all of these stories in the same time and place as I did back then. But focusing just now on Tron Betrayal, in short, this story is fantastic, and I'm so excited to see the other Tron things that I haven't yet. I still need to see and read some of the things, as I mentioned, mostly in regards to Tron 2.0, but I'm still excited to get to that when I can. I'm also very excited to see the new Tron movie, Tron Ares, when it releases next year, as it has finally finished production. Again, I just really hope we get to see Sam and Cora back in the movie, and so far it's not confirmed if we are going to see them or not. But what is confirmed is that the ending of Tron Legacy will be addressed, thankfully. And, even though it does seem like a portion of that movie is going to be set in the real world, I still do hope we get to see more of the world of Tron, more of the grid. Kind of like how the programs live and so on. And basically, like I said, the whole resolution to the Flan Lives movement at the end of Tron Legacy. So hopefully that does get clarified, as they are explaining that it would. So if we don't really get a lot of this resolved or explained in Tron Ares, hopefully we'll get another graphic novel or another video game or just something to kind of resolve all of these things and expand on it even more. Because really, this graphic novel, Tron Betrayal, was so good. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it like a 8 out of 10. It is fantastic. So if you guys love comics and you love the Tron series, definitely read this. But with all that said, guys, if you guys have read Tron Betrayal, let me know what you think of it. Let me know your thoughts and what story in the Tron universe is your favorite. So please watch my other reviews. This is included for Tron. This is included in my Tron playlist. And the playlist is set in a way that is in chronological order. So the next one after this would be Tron Evolution. So please watch that as well. With all that said, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day.